What if, in the endless silence between the stars, something ancient was drifting toward us? Not a planet, not a spacecraft, not a familiar comet circling back home, but a stranger, a wanderer from another sun, carrying with it the frozen memory of a world we will never see. Astronomers gave it a name, Three-Eye Atlas. To most of humanity, it was only a faint point of light, just another dot among countless billions. But to those who know the language of the skies, it was a whisper, a clue, a presence that did not belong. Imagine this, a traveller that began its journey before the first human stood upright, perhaps before the first forests grew on Earth, perhaps even before our sun burned at its brightest. For eons it drifted, crossing the gulfs between stars with no destination, no companion, only the quiet pull of gravity nudging it along. And now, for reasons we do not know, its path has brushed against our solar system, bringing it close enough for us to see. Most comets belong to us. Halley's Comet, for instance, loops back every 76 years, always returning. These comets are children of our solar system, icy remnants left over from its birth. But Atlas is different. Its path is hyperbolic, not a loop, not a circle, but an open curve. It has come once, and it will never return. Like a pebble skipping across a pond, Atlas will touch our sun's presence just once before it sails forever into the dark, and that is what makes it extraordinary. When Atlas was first noticed, it was almost by accident, a small blur of light on a survey telescope's nightly scan. The project responsible was not searching for mysteries, but for dangers. The Atlas Survey System, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, was built to give Earth warning of incoming threats. Its job was to protect, to save. And yet, one night, its sensitive eyes caught something stranger. The movement was wrong. The speed was too high. The orbit did not curve gently like a bound comet should. Instead, it cut sharply through the solar system, as though it had entered from elsewhere. Astronomers checked again and again. The calculations all agreed. This object was not from here. It was interstellar. That single word carries a weight. Interstellar. It means a history beyond our sun, beyond our planets, beyond everything we call home. Consider this. The water frozen in Atlas's heart may have formed under another sun, around a star long dead, or one still shining billions of miles away. Its dust may contain minerals never seen in our system, molecules that tell a story of chemistry alien to us. To capture light from an interstellar comet is to read a diary written by another world. And Atlas was offering us a page. But then came something stranger still. Its orbit was not just unusual, it was uncanny. Atlas's path threaded itself through our solar system with elegance. It passed near Venus, near Mars, and near Jupiter, as if touring the planets most dear to our curiosity. The chance of such a path forming by random chance. 0.005%, almost nothing. Like rolling thousands of dice and having them all land the same. Coincidence, perhaps, but to many it felt like something more. A message, a design, a quiet hello. I wonder, dear listener, as you breathe slowly now in the dim light of your room, if you were an ancient civilization sending a messenger into another solar system, how would you disguise it? Would you cloak it in ice and dust so it looked like any other comet? Would you let it drift silently, powered not by engines but by patience, waiting eons to arrive? Would you thread its orbit past the planets so any watching species would know this was no accident? Or would you hide it completely so it passed unnoticed, a secret known only to you? These are the questions Atlas stirs in us, questions that shimmer softly at the edge of sleep. Astronomers are no strangers to wonder. They had already been surprised once before in 2017 by another interstellar visitor, Oumuamua, a cigar-shaped mystery that tumbled oddly, without a comet's tail, and accelerated slightly as if pushed by something unseen. Many speculated it was a fragment of rock. Others whispered of alien probes. To this day, no one agrees. Then, in 2019, came Borisov, the second interstellar object. This one looked like a comet we knew, bright, with a tail carrying familiar gases, a reassurance that such wanderers exist and that they are not always so strange. And now, Atlas. Not like Oumuamua, not like Borisov, something in between. As though the universe were offering us a sequence. First the mystery, then the familiar, then the hybrid, each one drawing us deeper into the question, what if? Even now Atlas drifts on, its coma faint, its tail delicate. Its chemistry whispers in signals we collect with careful instruments. Each reading adds a piece to the puzzle, and yet the picture grows no clearer. Is it a natural comet, born of another sun? The truth of Atlas lies in silence. Unlike the noisy fireworks of nearby comets, its voice is quiet, almost hesitant. You would not notice it with your own eyes, even on the darkest night. It hides, faint and small, revealing itself only to those who know how to listen with machines. Telescopes on mountaintops and satellites in orbit bend their gaze toward it, collecting whispers of reflected sunlight. Each photon captured is a breadcrumb, a clue. Astronomers turn these crumbs into measurements: speed, brightness, composition. And from those, stories unfold. They learn that Atlas is fragile. Its nucleus, the icy heart, is not solid stone but more like a pile of snow pressed together, delicate and easily broken. Already, under the sun's warmth, pieces of it crumble away. A comet's death is slow but certain. As it approaches, it sheds itself, until all that remains is dust and memory. That fragility makes it even stranger to imagine as a messenger. For what kind of civilization would build something so impermanent? Unless impermanence is the point. Perhaps endurance is not the only way to speak. Perhaps a message can be carried by a fleeting gesture, a brief crossing, a whisper rather than a shout. Think of writing in the sand. The tide will wash it away. And yet, in the moment, the words are real. So it is with Atlas. To the astronomers tracking it, each night becomes a ritual. They wait for the comet to rise, align their instruments, record its position. The faint streak moves against the star field, proof that it is not a fixed point, but a traveller. They compare notes, refine orbits, publish updates. Data moves across the world in bursts of electrons, from Hawaii to Europe, from Chile to South Africa. In the quiet hours, a network of minds watches this one fragile wanderer, united by the desire to understand. And in that way, Atlas connects not only planets, but people. It reminds us of something we often forget, that science is not cold, but communal, that behind every number is a human, gazing up, wondering, that wonder itself may be the most ancient inheritance we carry. And you, listening now, drifting gently in the calm of night, you are part of this story too. You may not hold a telescope, you may not compute orbital dynamics, but by listening, by imagining, you're touching the same mystery. It does not matter if you're lying awake in Karachi, or listening by candlelight in Oslo, or drifting off in the still heat of Lagos, or rocking gently to sleep in Sao Paulo. All of us are joined under this same sky, joined by this same question. Where did Atlas come from? And why now? Astronomers attempt answers. They trace its path backward, trying to find its origin star. But the galaxy is a busy place, filled with moving lights. Over millions of years, gravitational nudges alter trajectories. Like trying to trace the path of a single leaf in the wind, the further back you look, the more uncertain it becomes. So the birthplace of Atlas is lost. We cannot know its first sun, its first orbit, its first world. And maybe that is fitting, for in mystery lies possibility. Here is one possibility. Atlas was born in the icy outskirts of a distant system, thrown loose when a giant planet's gravity flung it outward. For billions of years it drifted, carrying frozen water and organics through the dark, until at last it passed near enough to us to be seen. Another possibility, it is not natural at all. Its delicate structure is not a weakness, but a camouflage. Within the fragile shell lies something more enduring, an artifact, a probe, hidden in plain sight. When the ice is all evaporated, something harder may remain, a seed revealed after the husk has melted away. And another still, it is neither probe nor comet, but something stranger, a hybrid, a natural object once but altered, touched, guided, repurposed by hands we cannot imagine, sent drifting not as an active scout but as a message in a bottle designed to look unremarkable until examined closely. What if we are not the first to notice such wanderers? Perhaps civilizations older than us have already catalogued thousands of them. Perhaps they send their own, quietly, into the galaxy, to share chemistry, to share questions. If so, Atlas is one letter in a library vast beyond comprehension, and we, fragile as we are, have just begun learning the alphabet. Close your eyes now and imagine drifting alongside Atlas. The stars are brighter here, away from Earth's atmosphere. The comet itself is dim, but near it you see grains of dust glimmering in sunlight, each one a tiny mirror. Its nucleus, rough and jagged, exhales faint gas jets like sighs. You float beside it, and you know, this thing is older than your species, older than your planet's mountains, older than the oceans that rock you to sleep. You place your hand gently on its frozen surface. It feels brittle, fragile, as though it might crumble at your touch. And in that moment you feel the strangeness of it, that something so delicate can survive so long, travelling light years waiting to be found. It is a reminder, perhaps, that endurance is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about patience. Here, in this drifting moment, the universe feels both infinite and intimate. Infinite because the distances are unimaginable. Intimate because the comet is right there, close enough to touch, carrying stories you're allowed to hear. That is the gift Atlas offers, intimacy with infinity. And now, dear dreamer, as your eyelids grow heavier, let yourself imagine the sound of Atlas's journey. Of course, space has no air, no sound, but if it did, you might hear the faint crackle of ice fracturing under sunlight. You might hear the sigh of gas escaping into vacuum. You might hear the endless hum of motion, a song of travel written over millions of years. Let that imagined sound carry you deeper into calm, a comet's lullaby, older than Earth, older than us all. And so, Chapter 1 closes here, with a visitor in our sky, faint and fragile but profound, a traveller that came uninvited, bearing questions we cannot yet answer. Was Atlas only ice and dust, or a messenger, or a gardener of worlds? The truth is not yet ours, but the wondering is, and that perhaps is the most beautiful gift of all. Numbers are usually thought of as sharp things, exact, unyielding, cold, but in the right light they become soft, dreamlike, shimmering with hidden meaning. And nowhere is this more true than in the mathematics of the cosmos. For the path of Atlas, this fragile visitor from the stars, is written not in words but in numbers. Every point of its journey is inscribed in the geometry of orbits, the pull of gravity, the delicate dance of chance. To look at ATLAS is to read a poem written in mathematics. Astronomers were the first to hear the rhythm of that poem. They measured the faint speck, night after night. Its position shifted against the fixed stars, a little to the left, a little higher, a fraction brighter, a fraction dimmer. Each change was noted, turned into numbers, fed into equations. And from those numbers, a story emerged. The speed was wrong for a native comet. It moved too quickly, cutting across the solar system like a stone skipping on water. The curve of its orbit was not a circle, not an ellipse. It was a hyperbola, a curve that does not return. This was the mathematics of elsewhere. Hyperbolas have a beauty to them. Unlike circles which close or ellipses which repeat, a hyperbola is open-ended. It begins near, then drifts away forever outward. A symbol of impermanence, of brief encounters, of one-time wonders. That was ATLAS. Not a companion, not a returning friend, but a fleeting visitor, a single stanza in a cosmic poem that stretches endlessly. But then came something stranger still. The numbers showed its trajectory passing near Venus, near Mars, near Jupiter, as though it were a traveller on a tour, politely bowing before each world. The odds of such a path forming by random chance, 0.005%, mathematically tiny, almost impossibly small. And here is where numbers become mysterious. Because while equations may be cold, probability is not. Probability is a whisper of meaning, a suggestion that something is unusual, perhaps deliberate. When the dice keep falling the same way, we start to wonder if there is more at play. Imagine for a moment designing such a path. If you were sending a messenger into another solar system, you might choose a trajectory that brushes the planets, ensuring notice. Close enough to be studied, not close enough to collide. Precise, elegant, undeniable. That is exactly what ATLAS did. Coincidence? Perhaps. But numbers invite us to ask, what if it isn't? Numbers themselves are a universal language. 2 and 2 make 4, whether you're human or alien. A circle is 360 degrees on Earth, on Mars, or under the light of a star no one has named. The digits of pi are the same everywhere. If you wanted to speak across the stars, you would use mathematics. And so, when we see mathematics in motion, elegant trajectories, improbable alignments, we cannot help but wonder, is this speech? Is this design? Is this a quiet hello, written not in sound, but in geometry? Think of the Voyager probes, launched from Earth decades ago. On their sides we placed golden records, etched with symbols and sounds meant for anyone who might one day find them. Among those symbols were simple mathematical diagrams because we trust numbers to cross the gulf of strangeness. What if ATLAS is the same? A golden record but written in orbit, not in grooves. A mathematical message written in the stars themselves. Astronomers, for all their rigour, are not immune to awe. They whisper about such possibilities, half smiling, knowing their colleagues may frown. But in the quiet, in the long nights at telescopes, they allow themselves the luxury of wonder. They know the numbers are improbable. They know the universe is vast. And they know that sometimes improbability is exactly where meaning hides. Close your eyes now. Imagine numbers drifting like snowflakes. Each one unique, each one soft, each one carrying a hidden pattern. Some melt away the moment you touch them. Others linger, glimmering in the dark. This is how mathematics feels in the cosmos. Not cold, not harsh, but delicate, luminous, alive. The orbit of ATLAS is one such snowflake. To most it is just another calculation, but to us here, lying under the stars, it is a sign that the universe is not only vast but playful, that it sends us puzzles, small riddles, tiny gifts wrapped in probability, and in solving them we find not only knowledge but peace. Mathematics does not end with orbits, it reaches deeper into the structure of ATLAS itself. Its brightness fluctuates, suggesting a fragile body spinning. Equations describe that spin, its period, its wobble. Numbers reveal cracks, sublimations, jets of gas that push it gently. Even the faintest push is measurable. Every sigh of the comet becomes an equation. Every equation becomes a verse. Every verse becomes part of the story. And so, the mathematics of ATLAS is more than numbers. It is a language of wonder, a language that asks, what are the odds that we noticed? What are the odds that its path is so graceful? What are the odds that we, fragile creatures of water and carbon, were here to see it at all? The odds are small, so small, and yet, here we are. Perhaps that is the most beautiful number of all. Ice, such a simple word. On Earth, it is what we place in a glass, what glitters in winter, what cracks on frozen lakes. But in the cosmos, ice is something else entirely. It is memory. It is time preserved. It is the library of the universe. For the core of Atlas, this fragile interstellar visitor, is made of ice older than Earth itself. Each frozen molecule inside it is a record, a note written billions of years ago in the chemistry of another star. When sunlight touches it now as Atlas drifts past our worlds, the ice exhales. Tiny jets of vapor and dust rise like sighs, carrying with them secrets long kept in darkness. Telescopes catch those sighs, split them into spectra, and within those coloured lines, astronomers read. They read methane. They read carbon monoxide. They read faint traces of organics. They read whispers of biology waiting to be born. What if, within that ice, there is a message? Not in words, not in sound, but in pattern. Imagine molecules arranged not randomly, but deliberately. A ratio of isotopes that defies chance. A sequence of carbon chains that forms not chaos, but code. A chemistry that says softly, across the gulf of stars, we were here and we are watching. Consider this. Life on Earth may have begun with such ice. Comets, falling into our young oceans, may have carried the amino acids that seeded biology. In that sense, comets are not wanderers but gardeners, planting the seeds of life across worlds. If that is true, then Atlas is not just a visitor. It is a gardener from another system, and every breath of its melting ice is a scattering of seeds, drifting, falling, waiting. Perhaps one day, on some distant planet, they will bloom again. But the idea of a message goes further. Some scientists wonder, what if advanced civilizations know this? What if they do not send radio signals, easily lost in noise, but instead alter comets? What if they encode patterns in the chemistry of ice, knowing those patterns will survive across eons, waiting to be read? A comet then becomes not just frozen rock, but a letter travelling at the speed of patience, not light. A letter that arrives not in decades, but in millions of years. A letter that says we exist, and Atlas may be such a letter. Close your eyes now and imagine holding a shard of its ice, cold, clear, fragile. Inside, tiny bubbles shimmer. You place it under a beam of light and colours spread. Red, blue, green, ultraviolet. Hidden in those colours is a pattern, a ratio, a repetition, a structure too elegant to be chance. Your breath slows. You realise you're not holding just ice. You're holding a voice. Even without intention, ice itself speaks. Its isotopes reveal the star where it formed. Its dust reveals the minerals of its homeworld. Its organics reveal the chemistry that danced in its cradle. Astronomers know this. They listen carefully. They measure every molecule, searching for anomalies. And if one day they find something too perfect, too deliberate, a ratio of hydrogen to deuterium that matches no natural process, a chain of molecules that spells a universal constant, a geometry encoded in atoms, then we will know. We will know the ice is not silent. But even if no such message is ever found, Atlas still speaks. It speaks of distance. It speaks of endurance. It speaks of patience. To drift for millions of years and arrive intact is itself a story of survival, of persistence, of the vastness of time. And perhaps that is the message, that we are small, that the universe is large, that even fragile things can travel far if they are patient enough. The message in the ice then is twofold. One layer, chemistry, molecules, possible code. Another layer, philosophy, patience, endurance. And perhaps both are needed. Perhaps the universe does not only ask us to read, but also to feel. Let yourself imagine now floating beside Atlas. You reach out, break off a crystal of ice, place it on your tongue. It tastes faintly metallic, alien, sharp. But within it you feel history, as though you are swallowing starlight itself. And then, in the quiet of your mind, you hear it, not in words, but in meaning. The ice says, "You are not alone. You never were." And so, as we drift deeper into this night's journey, we carry that thought like a lullaby. Atlas may be a natural wanderer, or it may be a message, or it may be both at once. Nature itself as message, ice itself as voice. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. To touch its ice is to touch eternity. And that, dear dreamer, is more than enough. What if orbits themselves could speak? What if the very path of a wandering comet was not only mathematics, but meaning? And what if 3I Atlas, this fragile interstellar traveller, was not drifting aimlessly, but following a design? We are taught to see comets as accidents of gravity. A star pulls, a planet nudges, and a frozen fragment takes whatever path chance allows. The universe, we are told, is indifferent, chaotic, without intention. But sometimes, the numbers suggest otherwise. Astronomers who measured Atlas's course saw something uncanny. Not only was it interstellar, not bound to our sun, but its trajectory threaded itself elegantly through our neighbourhood of planets. It brushed the orbit of Venus, it slipped near Mars, it leaned toward Jupiter, a cosmic tourist passing each world like a traveller checking landmarks. The chance of such a path forming randomly, 0.005%. Almost nothing. Almost impossible. Like a whisper in the dark telling us, look closer. But what if that whisper is not coincidence? What if it is intent? Consider what an advanced civilization might do sending a reconnaissance probe into a foreign solar system. They could build machines sleek and obvious, but machines can fail. Machines reveal their makers too easily. Instead, they could use something that looks natural, something indistinguishable from an ordinary comet, a disguise of ice and dust, hiding instruments within, and then they could give it a path, a trajectory that is subtle, almost random, but just improbable enough that it sparks suspicion in any species advanced enough to notice, a signature written in orbit, a message that says, "We are here." To understand why orbits can carry meaning, you must feel them not as numbers but as music. Imagine each planet as a note in a scale. Earth hums at one pitch, Mars at another, Jupiter a deeper bass. When a comet sweeps through, it traces a melody across those notes. Most comets play chaotic tunes, rough and discordant. But Atlas, its melody was graceful. Too graceful. It brushed the chords of habitability, lingered on the harmonics of interest, as though it was not only moving but performing. If Atlas is alien, then its orbit is not accident. It is communication. Think of the Voyager probes we sent outward from Earth. We plotted their paths carefully, so they would slingshot past planets, stealing momentum, flying farther. The trajectory itself was part of the design, a deliberate way of saying, we understood gravity well enough to use it. Atlas may be the same. Its path may be its proof. Proof that somewhere, someone plotted it long ago, launched it with precision, and trusted the language of orbits to carry their message across the stars. Now imagine yourself lying back, feeling your breath slow, your body sinking into calm. Above you, in your mind's eye, the solar system spreads like a map. The sun at the centre, planets in their ellipses, comets like threads weaving through. On that map, Atlas draws its curve. Not a loop, not a bound circle, but an open hand reaching in and then out again. A gesture. And gestures, dear dreamer, are never meaningless. Some scientists resist this thought. They say, improbable does not mean impossible. They remind us of randomness, of the billions of comets we do not see. They caution against wishful thinking, and yet in the quiet of their observatories they feel it too. That shiver of wonder, that suspicion that perhaps this is not chance. For science is not only about certainty, it is also about curiosity. And curiosity begins exactly where probability falters. If Atlas is alien, then what is its purpose? Perhaps it is reconnaissance. A probe disguised as nature, recording atmospheres, scanning for signs of technology, measuring our little blue world. Its orbit passes near enough to see, far enough to remain safe. Perhaps it is symbolic, a gesture not to gather data, but to announce existence. A silent wave, sent across the gulfs of time, knowing it may take millions of years to be noticed. Or perhaps it is both, science and poetry, calculation and art. After all, would not a civilization old enough to send such a messenger also know that meaning matters as much as measurement? The orbit whispers. And we, half asleep, half awake, are left to wonder. What is it saying? Is it saying, we are watching you? Is it saying, we were once like you? Or is it saying nothing at all? Its elegance an accident, our meaning a projection? That uncertainty is its power, because whether or not Atlas is alien, it has already changed us. It has taught us to look deeper. It has reminded us that orbits themselves can carry intent. Close your eyes, dear dreamer. Let your breath drift in rhythm with the planets themselves, slow and circular. Imagine that the orbit of Earth is not merely a path around the sun, but a cradle, a line that has carried us safely for billions of years. Now imagine a TLAS entering this cradle, not colliding, not disturbing, but brushing gently, like a fingertip across harp strings. A presence felt more than seen. If this is chance, it is beautiful. If this is design, it is profound. Civilizations leave signatures in how they move things. We leave ours in the satellites we place around Earth, the rockets we guide to the moon, the paths we carve to Mars. If another intelligence looked from afar, they would know instantly. These are not natural orbits. These are intentional. What then would they think if they saw Atlas moving past our sun? Would they believe it natural, or would they, like us, feel suspicion whispering at the edge of certainty? And if they too wondered, then the orbit has succeeded. For its power lies not in proof, but in the question it plants. Here is a thought to cradle as you sink deeper into rest. Perhaps the universe is full of such whispers, comets disguised as messengers, trajectories chosen not for efficiency but for elegance, a hidden layer of communication we have barely begun to decode. To notice it is to awaken, just a little, to a wider cosmic dialogue. To ignore it is to remain asleep. Either way, the message waits. Orbits are patient. When ancient astronomers looked to the sky, they also read meaning in paths. The Babylonians tracked comets and believed they foretold the fate of kings. The Chinese imperial court recorded their trails as omens of dynasty and disaster. The Maya wove their returns into cycles of time. To them, orbits already carried intent, divine, mystical, inevitable. What they lacked was the language of gravity. We now know the physics, the equations, the Newtonian clockwork. But what if, hidden beneath that precision, intent still lingers? Perhaps the ancients were not wrong to see meaning in movement. Perhaps they only lack the instruments to ask the deeper question: whose intent? Astronomers noticed another curious detail about ATLAS, its slight deviations from expected motion. Not chaotic, but subtle. Jets of gas, we are told, cause it to shift. Comets often do this. The ice warms, vents of vapor push like thrusters. But what if those vents are not random? What if they are controlled? Imagine a probe that guides itself by heating selective patches of ice, steering with invisible fingers. To us it looks like cometary activity. To its makers it is a navigation system. An orbit, then, is not merely a passive path, but a controlled gesture. A whisper sharpened into a word. If that is so, then a TLAS is not simply passing by. It is choosing where to pass, choosing what to show us, choosing how to be seen. And that thought, dear dreamer, is like lying on the shore and realizing the waves that touch your feet are not random, but are reaching, again and again, deliberately toward you. Would you still call them chance? Or would you hear, at last, the ocean's intent? The deeper you sink into this thought, the more mysterious it becomes. For even if Atlas is natural, the orbit still changes us. We humans cannot help but assign meaning. We look at the stars and invent constellations. We look at comets and imagine omens. We look at orbits and hear whispers. That very tendency to see intent may itself be part of the universe's design. A way of preparing us for the day when intent is real. Perhaps ATLAS is not the first. Perhaps others have come before, unnoticed, unstudied. Perhaps the sky has been full of whispers, and only now are we quiet enough to listen. As you drift further into calm, imagine this scene. A distant civilization, older than ours, sits around their version of a telescope. They watch their own night sky. One among them points, saying, "There, do you see it? That object threading so precisely between our planets." And they wonder, and they dream, and they ask the same question we now ask. Is it alien? In that moment, across the stars, two civilizations are joined not by proof, but by curiosity, by orbit, by wonder. The more we study ATLAS's path, the more it feels like a riddle written in geometry. A curve drawn not only for the sake of motion, but as if to say, watch me, follow me, wonder about me. And wonder is exactly what it awakens. Because when you trace its course on a star map, you see not a random plunge through the solar system, but a line that almost feels choreographed. It skims the gravitational wells of planets without being trapped. It tilts at angles that suggest awareness of where not to go. It moves with a kind of restraint as though avoiding chaos. This is not the reckless tumble of an icy rock. This is the careful glide of something aware. Of course, we must ask, if ATLAS were alien, why would its makers design such a subtle performance? Why not come closer? Why not orbit Earth directly, or flash signals across our skies? The answer may be patience. A species advanced enough to launch interstellar probes may measure time differently. What is 1,000,000 years to them, if their message survives? What is the slow sweep of a trajectory, if its meaning is eventually understood? They may know that true recognition comes not from spectacle, but from quiet impossibility. A spectacle fades, an improbability lingers. Think of Stonehenge. The stones themselves are silent, unmoving. And yet their placement, deliberate, aligned, improbable, carries meaning across 5,000 years. Atlas may be a Stonehenge of the stars, a structure not built of stone, but of ice and trajectory, placed not on Earth, but in orbit. Its meaning found not in words, but in position. To read it requires patience. To understand it requires curiosity. And perhaps that is the test. Lie back, let your breath flow easy. Imagine you're standing in a field at night, the stars clear above. You trace Atlas's path in your mind, a line arcing gracefully past Venus, Mars, Jupiter. You do not see random motion. You see a signature, and you realize orbits can be art. If its makers intended it, then we are looking at interstellar calligraphy, a flourish written across the canvas of our solar system. What might the message say? Perhaps we reached you. Perhaps we too once looked outward in wonder. Perhaps you are not alone, and here is the proof. Improbable, undeniable, silent, but clear. Or perhaps the message is simply the orbit itself. The act of passing by, perfectly tuned, is enough. Let us drift further into the thought of control. If Atlas is steered, then how? We spoke of jets of gas, sublimation vents acting as thrusters. But what if deeper inside, within the icy shell, there are structures, metallic veins, latticework, instruments embedded in crystal? What if those structures activate only when warmed by a star, a dormant machine waiting until sunlight awakens it? In that case, the orbit is not only its path, but its trigger, a chosen course that ensures activation at the right time, near the right worlds. Perhaps passing Earth is not coincidence. Perhaps it is necessity. If this is true, then Atlas may not only be alien, it may be ancient. Launched long before humans ever learned fire, it could have drifted silently for eons, waiting, preserved in cold, kept safe by distance, until at last it found a system with a young, noisy species watching the skies. And here we are, the first generation capable of noticing, the first able to ask, is it alien? The orbit whispers, and for the first time, we listen. But perhaps the orbit says something more subtle. Not only look at me, but look at yourselves. For in asking the question, we reveal our own nature. We show that we are ready to wonder, ready to imagine others, ready to see intent where once we saw only rocks. In that sense, Atlas is a mirror. Its orbit reflects not only its own path, but our readiness to interpret. If we see nothing, perhaps we are not ready. If we see everything, perhaps we are dreaming too far. But if we balance between cautious, curious, open, then maybe we're exactly where we should be. Drift deeper now into stillness. Picture Atlas in your mind, a faint greenish glow against the black. It turns slowly, releasing tiny breaths of vapor, adjusting, aligning. Below it, Earth spins, unaware, and yet you are aware. You hear the whisper, not loud, not forceful, but undeniable. The orbit is not silence. It is intention written in motion. The longer astronomers studied Atlas, the more unsettled they became. Its trajectory was not only unusual but elegant, almost rehearsed. Its deviations from pure gravity-driven flight were small yet consistent, like a dancer guided not by chance, but by choreography. If orbits can whisper, then this one was almost singing. Now imagine, dear dreamer, drifting further into rest, that Atlas is not simply a comet but an emissary, a messenger that has been practicing this dance for millions of years, waiting for an audience intelligent enough to notice. And now, finally, the curtain has lifted. Humanity watches, and the performance begins. Why would an advanced civilization choose orbit as their medium of communication? Because orbits last. Radio signals fade into noise, languages die and change, but mathematics endures. A trajectory can survive for millennia, even millions of years. And when at last it is noticed, its improbability carries the weight of intention. It is the most patient form of communication imaginable, a language of geometry written in time itself. Picture again our own probes, Voyager and Pioneer. To us, they are marvels, carrying golden records. To another intelligence, they would be fragments, silent machines drifting through stars. Their greatest signature would not be the records, but the fact that they moved unnaturally. Motion itself is message. Atlas may be the same. Its orbit may be its golden record, not a sound, not a pick. What if Atlas is not alone? What if far beyond the glow of our sun, there are watchers, quiet, patient, eternal, who already know we exist? When we look at the stars, we see cold points of light. But to another civilization, those same stars may be coordinates, addresses, stations of observation. They may not shine merely as suns, but as lanterns marking the paths of ancient travellers. And what if Three-Eye Atlas was sent by them? Not a wanderer, but a scout. a fragment of their gaze drifting silently into our system. Astronomers sometimes speak of the cosmic zoo hypothesis, the idea that advanced civilizations might already know about us, but choose not to interfere. They watch, they study, they observe from afar, allowing us to grow naturally like animals in a preserve. If that is true, then ATLAS may be one of their instruments. Not a comet by accident, but a tool by design. Its orbit not random, but assigned. Its ice not natural, but engineered to record. And if so, then we are not the watchers. We are the watched. Imagine it now. Beyond the edge of our solar system, hidden in the quiet dark, lies an outpost. Perhaps it is no larger than a mountain. Perhaps it is invisible to our telescopes, but it is there. Inside, a civilization monitors probes like Atlas. They read the chemistry of our air. They listen to the hum of our radio signals. They observe our storms, our oceans, our forests. Perhaps they even study our dreams. We sleep under the stars, unaware that the stars may be awake. Close your eyes and let your breath deepen. Picture yourself as one of these watchers. You stand on a world orbiting a distant sun. You look across space not with eyes, but with instruments centuries ahead of ours. You see Earth, small and blue, wrapped in clouds. You see cities glow faintly at night. You hear our broadcasts leaking outward, a chorus of music and noise, and then with gentle intent you send a messenger, a comet in disguise. Atlas. You watch as it enters our system, as it sweeps near our planets, as humans notice and whisper, "What if it is alien?" And you smile, for that is exactly what you hoped. What if this is the purpose? Not to prove, not to terrify, but to awaken curiosity. Contact may not begin with clarity. It may begin with doubt, with mystery, with a slow unfurling of a question. Because questions grow, they spread, they seed imagination, they prepare the mind, and when the watchers finally step into the light, we will already be ready. Atlas is the seed. The watchers are the tree. Astronomers estimate there may be billions of Earth-like planets in our galaxy alone. Billions of chances for civilizations to rise. If even one of them is older, wiser, more patient, then we are infants in their sight. Would they announce themselves boldly, with ships and lights and voices, or would they send whispers, comets, trajectories, improbable visitors that leave us wandering in silence? Whispers are safer. Whispers do not disrupt. Whispers let us choose whether to listen. Atlas is such a whisper. As your breath slows, imagine the watchers not as conquerors, not as predators, but as caretakers. Perhaps they too once wondered if they were alone. Perhaps they too sent probes into the dark, hoping someone would notice, and perhaps they remember the fear of first contact. So they are gentle with us. So they hide behind comets. So they wait until we are strong enough to listen without breaking. That patience is their kindness. But patience is also unsettling. For if they are watching, then they already know us better than we know them. They know we wage wars. They know we poison our air. They know we dream of peace but stumble in chaos. And still they watch. And still they send comets. And still they wait. That may be the greatest reassurance of all, that despite our flaws, we are still worthy of attention. Imagine now, drifting deeper into calm, that you're lying on a field under the stars. The night is silent, the air cool, the sky vast. You stare upward and realize, some of those stars may not be stars. Some may be eyes. An atlas, glowing faintly as it drifts past, may be their way of saying, "We see you, little one, and we are near." Sleep gently with that thought, for even if we are being watched, it is not with malice, but with wonder. We are part of a cosmic story, and the watchers beyond the stars are simply the next chapter. And tonight, Atlas is the page we turn. What if Atlas is not a comet at all? What if the icy shell we see, glowing faintly green as it passes through our solar system, is nothing more than a disguise? To our telescopes, it is dust, ice, and vapor. To our instruments, it is a fragile, ancient body breaking down as it nears the sun. But beneath that fragile mask, what if something more extraordinary hides? Imagine Atlas as a cathedral of alien design, not made of stone, but of materials so advanced that they appear to us as ordinary ice, not built for worship but for endurance. A vessel meant to survive a million-year voyage between stars. If we could peel away its layers, if we could step inside, what would we find? Perhaps its heart is hollow, a chamber vast enough to house machines, not machines of gears and pistons, but crystalline structures that hum with energy. Maybe what we call outgassing, the jets of vapor that burst from its surface, are not natural at all. Maybe they are vents, exhaust ports, or signals released intentionally. Every puff of gas, every flicker of light, every twist in its rotation could be encoded, a language etched in physics itself. And what if we have been too quick to call it chaos? Breathe deeply now. Let your mind drift into the stillness of that hollow heart. Picture yourself standing inside Atlas, surrounded by walls that glitter faintly, not with frost, but with design. Patterns spiral like veins of light through translucent material. The floor vibrates with a pulse too slow to notice at first, like the heartbeat of something enormous and calm. This is no comet. This is an arc. Astronomers often remind us, humans see what they expect. When we expect a comet, we see a comet. When we expect ice, we measure ice. But what if Atlas is an object designed precisely to exploit that expectation? What if its creators knew that any young species still fumbling with telescopes would dismiss it as ordinary? And so they cloaked their craft in frozen camouflage, invisible beneath the gaze of science until science is ready to ask deeper questions. Perhaps tonight you're asking one of those questions. Close your eyes and picture the architecture within Atlas unfolding like a flower. At its center, a spire of light rises. Around it, chambers branch like honeycomb, each glowing faintly with alien symbols. These are not symbols of language as we know it. They are frequencies, harmonics, geometric patterns that vibrate with meaning far beyond words. A civilization that built such a thing would not think in alphabets. They would think in resonances, in the mathematics of beauty. And their message, encoded within Atlas, may be not a command, not a warning, but an invitation. Imagine Atlas not as a lump of frozen debris, but as a carefully designed labyrinth, a structure built for endurance, not speed. A vessel not for passengers, but for memory. Within its icy skin, imagine thousands of layers, each serving a different purpose. The outer crust protects against micrometeor impacts. The next layer shields against radiation. Beneath that, sensors rest like seeds in soil, waiting, listening, recording. Each sensor gathers data, the warmth of nearby stars, the spectra of planets, the chemical fingerprints of atmospheres. And then, when a TLAS draws close enough to a sun, its icy mask becomes its power source. The heat releases vapor. The vapor drives turbines, and the turbines awaken its sleeping core. To us, it looks like sublimation, ice turning into gas. But to the watchers, it is ignition. Breathe slowly, dear dreamer, as though you are hearing that ignition yourself. A low hum, like the sound of wind through an empty corridor, a faint rhythm, like the tide. Atlas awakens, not to speak to us, but to report back across the void. Perhaps it turns its jets deliberately, not randomly. Perhaps every change in its spin is a sentence. Perhaps its trail of dust is a letter written across the blackboard of the cosmos. We see it as chaos. They see it as language. Now, close your eyes tighter. Let yourself imagine stepping deeper into this vessel. The walls are smooth, translucent, almost alive with shifting light. You walk down a tunnel that narrows until it opens into a vast chamber. In the center hovers a crystalline core, slowly rotating. It hums with frequencies that you do not hear but feel. Vibrations in your chest, in your bones, in your very breath. This is the heart of ATLAS. Not a nucleus of dust, but an engine of meaning. An architecture not for travel, but for time. Think of time on the scale of civilizations. 1,000 years to us is a flicker, but to them 1,000 years is a heartbeat. They do not build for decades. They build for epochs. Atlas may have left its home star before humanity even learned fire. It may have drifted for hundreds of thousands of years, silent, patient, unchanging. Yet when it arrived exactly when we were ready to notice. That is the genius of alien architecture. It builds not just for space, but for time. Let your mind wander to the builders themselves. Who are they? Are they flesh and bone, like us, or something stranger? Beings of crystal, of plasma, of forms that dissolve in light? Do they still exist, or are they long gone, leaving only these vessels as their legacy? Perhaps Atlas is not a probe at all. Perhaps it is a message from the dead, drifting across eternity. A bottle in the ocean of the galaxy, carrying the last whispers of a lost civilization. And now, we are the ones who have opened the bottle. Feel your breath deepen. Imagine tracing your hand across the inner walls of ATLAS, feeling grooves etched into the crystalline surface. They are not cracks, they are records. Each line contains histories of stars, the maps of galaxies, the rise and fall of countless worlds. This is no comet. This is a library. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you are already inside it. What if the interior of ATLAS is not silent at all? What if, beneath its shell, vibrations echo endlessly, like the ringing of a bell struck long ago? We assume silence, because our instruments are tuned for what we expect: light, heat, motion. But perhaps Atlas sings in frequencies we cannot hear, tones too low or too high, resonances that pass through us like ghosts. Imagine slipping into meditation, your breath slow, your body weightless. In that stillness, you begin to hear it. A deep, soothing pulse, like the hum of the universe itself. The architecture within Atlas is alive, not with life, but with resonance. Every chamber is a note. Every wall is a chord. Together they form a harmony so vast it may carry information across eons. Perhaps this is how the Watchers communicate. Not with words, not with numbers, but with music written in structures. Each spiral corridor, each repeating crystal, each echoing chamber is part of a composition. And a TLAS is the instrument. It drifts through space, not silently but singing. We have simply not yet learned to listen. Breathe deeper, dreamer. Feel the calm of knowing that meaning may hide in plain sight. What we call randomness, what we dismiss as chance, may simply be language unrecognized. The green glow of ATLAS's tail, a wavelength chosen for visibility. The fractal cracks in its surface, patterns repeating like the syllables of a poem. The spin of its body, not chaotic, but deliberate. A structure of beauty, a cathedral of code. Close your eyes tighter now and picture walking further into its core. You come to a chamber unlike any other, vast, spherical, the walls shimmering as though they were woven from starlight itself. The chamber is empty, yet it does not feel empty. It feels attentive, as though the room itself is aware of you. You realize then, the architecture is not only a message, it is an intelligence. Atlas is not carrying machines. Atlas is the machine. What if its icy body is not a shell, but a nervous system? Each fissure a channel, each vent a breath, each rotation a thought. To us it looks fragile, dissolving as it approaches the sun. But perhaps that dissolution is not decay. Perhaps it is the release of information, the the exhalation of a mind. Imagine exhaling not air but history. Imagine every particle of dust it sheds as a word, drifting into the solar wind, scattering across space as whispers. We call it disintegration. But what if it is revelation? Now dream a rest in this thought, that when we gaze at Atlas, when we map its orbit, when we measure its fading tail, we are not observing a dying rock. We are reading a story written in physics. We are witnessing alien architecture expressing itself through nature. To notice this is to take the first step toward understanding. To close your eyes now is to walk further into the cathedral of mystery. We often think of alien architecture in terms of the monumental. Cities stretching across planets, towers rising beyond clouds, ships vast enough to eclipse stars. But the architecture of ATLAS, if it is truly alien, is different. It is small enough to seem natural, simple enough to appear ordinary. Yet within that simplicity, there may be elegance more profound than any palace of stone. It is not a monument built to impress. It is a vessel built to endure. And endurance itself is the greatest architecture of all. Think of what it means to design for endurance, to survive the cold of interstellar dark, to survive collisions with dust and stone, to survive radiation and time itself. Every curve of ATLAS may have been chosen. Every ratio between length and spin, every layer of dust upon ice, every faint chemical hidden within its core may serve a function. Perhaps what we call random debris is insulation. Perhaps what we call fractures are access points. Perhaps what we call fragility is simply the unfolding of a design we do not yet understand. It is the difference between looking at a book and calling it paper, or looking closer and seeing words. Now breathe slowly, and imagine running your hand across the architecture inside. It is not cold as you expect, but faintly warm, as though something alive moves beneath the surface. You press your palm against it, and the warmth pulses back in rhythm with your own heartbeat. It feels like recognition. You realize then, the builders designed this not only to survive, but to connect. Not mechanically, not biologically, but energetically, through resonance, through rhythm, through the universal music of being. Every living thing has rhythm, the beat of a heart, the wave of breath, the cycles of sleep and waking. Atlas too may have its rhythm, and by noticing it, we begin to tune ourselves into its architecture. Imagine now the core of ATLAS slowly unfolding, like petals opening from a flower. What we thought was solid splits along hidden seams. Within, a lattice of crystalline structures reveals itself, glowing faintly in the sun's light. They bend light strangely, scattering it into rainbows that seem too perfect, too symmetrical. Prisms not by accident but by intention, and within those prisms may be stored something we cannot yet imagine. Memories, instructions, songs, all waiting for a species capable of listening. Dreamer, let your body soften as you rest in that thought. What if Atlas is not only architecture, but archive? A library disguised as a comet, travelling silently between stars. Perhaps every civilization that reaches the threshold of discovery is gifted one. Perhaps, when a species begins to dream of the stars, one of these vessels drifts near their world, carrying within it the knowledge of others who came before. We are not the first to look up in wonder. We will not be the last. But tonight, we are the ones standing at the threshold, gazing at the alien architectures within. There is something profoundly soothing in imagining ATLAS as an archive, because archives are not threats. Archives are gifts. They exist not to destroy but to preserve. And so, if Atlas is alien, then perhaps it is not a weapon or a spy, but a message left in trust, a structure that says, we were here, we watched the stars, we wanted others to know us. Even if its makers are long gone, their architecture remains. Stone erodes, metal rusts. But crystal, drifting in the cold between stars, can last longer than civilizations themselves, and so their voices endure. Close your eyes, dreamer, and imagine lying inside that alien cathedral. The walls shimmer faintly, the air hums with resonance, and you feel as though you are resting in the heart of something timeless. Every breath you take echoes against the structure, weaving you into its rhythm. It is as though Atlas itself is listening, gently adjusting its harmony to meet your own. This is no longer an object. This is a relationship. Between you, the listener, and it, the speaker. Between us, the fleeting, and it, the enduring. Perhaps that is the true meaning of alien architecture. Not simply to be built, but to be shared. Not simply to survive, but to connect. And if that is so, then Atlas is already doing its work. It has made us ask the question. It has made us wonder. It has made us imagine cathedrals within comets, intelligence within ice, voices within silence. That act of wondering is the connection. That act of dreaming is the bridge. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, know that you are not alone in your imagination. You're not the first to lie beneath stars and wonder who else might be watching. You're not the first to dream of vessels crossing the abyss, and you will not be the last. For the universe is filled with seeds like ATLAS, small, silent, waiting. Each one an architecture of patience, each one a story in disguise, each one a gift, hidden in the simplest of forms, waiting for eyes like ours to awaken. Breathe deeply now. Let your body sink into stillness. Feel the calm of knowing that even in the vast dark, beauty drifts toward us. Not to conquer, not to harm, but to whisper. You are part of something greater. You're seen, you're remembered, and in that whisper lies the architecture of peace. What if Atlas is not only a traveller through space, but also a messenger? Not one that shouts, not one that dazzles, but one that speaks in whispers, in silences, in patterns too delicate for the hurried human mind to notice. When you close your eyes and slow your breathing, the universe itself begins to hum. Stars pulse, galaxies spin. Even your heart beats in rhythm with something older than time, and perhaps Atlas belongs to that rhythm. It is easy to dismiss it as nothing more than a comet, ice sublimating in sunlight, leaving trails of gas and dust. But what if those trails are not random? What if every particle it sheds is like ink on invisible paper, written against the black backdrop of the cosmos? What if Atlas is leaving behind a message so large, so slow, that only a patient, dreaming species could ever notice? The language of dust. Imagine drifting beside ATLAS now, dreamer. Its long tail stretches away like a glowing ribbon, luminous green in the reflected light of the sun. You watch the streams of gas spiral outward, scattering into space. At first they seem chaotic, but then, slowly, you notice shapes forming, patterns repeating. The gas thickens, then thins, then curls in arcs that mirror one another. To your waking mind, it would look like nothing. To your dreaming mind, it feels like language. Scientists measure brightness, composition, trajectory. They look for data and they find numbers. But beyond numbers lies intention. What if the shape of ATLAS's disintegration is the message? What if the exact moment it broke apart, timed to be visible to our instruments, was no accident? We calculate the odds, 1 in thousands. Yet it happened here, now, while we have the technology to notice. Coincidence or conversation? Whispered in light. You may wonder, but how could dust and gas be a message? Yet remember, humans once carved entire languages into stone. We once painted on cave walls. We once arranged pebbles into patterns to mark meaning. If we, a fragile young species, could encode ourselves in such simple mediums, Why couldn't another civilization do the same, but with comets instead of caves, with orbits instead of ink? Pause here. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let your eyes grow heavy. Now imagine Atlas drifting across the darkness like a calligraphy brush in the hands of the cosmos. Every curve of its tail is a stroke, every burst of light a symbol, every orbit a sentence. The solar system is the parchment. Atlas is the pen. The message is still unfolding. A universal audience. And perhaps that message is not just meant for us. Perhaps every civilization that develops the ability to notice, telescopes, mathematics, patience, will find one of these messengers passing close. Each will see the same silences, the same trails, the same whispers written in dust. The message is not private. It is not the property of Earth. It is universal. It is for anyone who dares to listen. And in this realization lies the most soothing truth. We are not the target. We are not the chosen. We are part of the audience. Silence as intention. Dreamer, let us linger on the silence itself. We are so used to speech, to sound, to signal. But silence can be communication too. A pause before a word. A space between notes in a song. A breath between sentences. What if Atlas's long silence is not emptiness but punctuation? What if the centuries it spent drifting between stars were not wasted time, but the quiet pause before a message is delivered? There is power in waiting. There is power in restraint. Perhaps the silence itself is the message. Patience is wisdom. Endurance is strength. The listener's role. And here is the most gentle, humbling thought of all. A message requires not only a sender, but a listener. Without ears to hear, words vanish. Without eyes to see, symbols fade. So maybe Atlas drifts not only to speak, but to test. To see which civilizations are capable of slowing down long enough to notice. To see who can pause in their chaos, calm their restlessness, and listen to silence. In that sense, the message of ATLAS is not only in its dust, but in ourselves. It teaches us to be still. It teaches us to pay attention. It teaches us that listening itself is an act of discovery. A dream shared. Across stars. Now breathe deeply, dreamer. Imagine lying beneath your night sky, eyes heavy, body soft. Somewhere across the galaxy, another being is doing the same. Different body, different world, different sky. But above them too, a messenger drifts. One of countless objects like Atlas, scattering silent light. Perhaps they also wonder, is this natural or intentional? Perhaps they also ask, are we alone? And in their wondering, they are joined with us. The message of Atlas may not be words at all. It may be connection itself, invisible threads linking dreamers across the cosmos. Threads woven not by sound, but by silence. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let this thought cradle you, that silence itself can speak, that dust can carry meaning, that a fragile comet, breaking apart under sunlight, may be more than destruction. It may be revelation. Atlas is not shouting at us. It is whispering. And if we slow our minds, soften our breath, and listen with wonder, we may hear its most gentle message. You are part of something greater. You are not alone in your dreaming. Even in silence, the universe speaks. What if Atlas is not simply an object passing through our solar system, but an eye? Not a threatening gaze, not hostile surveillance, but a quiet watcher. One sent to observe, to notice, to remember. There is a strange comfort in imagining that we are not invisible. That as our species stumbles forward, reaching beyond the cradle of Earth, someone, somewhere is watching with patient curiosity. Not to interfere, not to judge, simply to witness. Perhaps ATLAS is such a witness. A lantern in the darkness, a quiet presence gliding through the shadows of our solar system, recording everything it sees. Imagine civilizations older than ours by millions of years, species who learned long ago the dangers of interference. They would know that to arrive in force, to land, to conquer, to reshape, would only frighten or destroy. But to watch, silently, from afar, that is safe, that is respectful. So they may have built watchers, objects like Atlas disguised as natural bodies, so ordinary that they pass without suspicion. Yet within, beneath the crust of dust and ice, there may be lenses, sensors, archives. Not like our machines, clumsy and short-lived, but subtle technologies that mimic nature itself. To us, it looks like a comet. To them, it is a perfect disguise. Now let us return to ATLAS's path. Its orbit does not simply cut through our solar system at random. It passed near Venus, near Mars, near Jupiter, and only then brushed close enough for us to notice. The odds of such a trajectory are infinitesimal, like tossing a stone across a pond and having it skip across every lily pad. If chance cannot explain it, then perhaps design can. Perhaps Atlas was launched on this path long ago, carefully aimed to glide past worlds worth observing. Not in haste, not in aggression, but in patience. For a watcher does not hurry. It simply waits for the right alignment, the right perspective, the right moment. Dreamer, let us pause here. How does it feel to imagine being watched? For some, the idea is unsettling. We fear hidden eyes, secret judgments. But this is different. This is not the watch of control or suspicion. It is the watch of attention. The kind of gaze a parent gives a sleeping child. The kind of gaze a poet gives a sunset. It is a gaze that says, "You matter enough to be seen." So imagine Earth as seen from Atlas, a fragile sphere of blues and whites, swirling with storms and light. Every city glowing faintly in the night, every ocean glimmering with reflected moonlight. To be watched is to be acknowledged, and perhaps that is all the watchers ever intended. What happens to the things Atlas sees? Perhaps it records them within crystalline chambers in its core. Not the way our machines store data, in lines of binary, but through patterns. Harmonies of light trapped in prisms, vibrations frozen in atomic lattices. Each sight, each sound, each heartbeat of a world etched into memory. Atlas drifts on, carrying the archive with it, waiting for retrieval. Maybe one day another vessel will cross its path collecting the record. Or maybe it will return centuries from now to deliver its story to its makers. Until then, it carries us with it, across the void. You, me, our cities, our oceans, shadows captured in silence, borne away into eternity. Many watchers, many worlds. And here is the grander thought. Atlas may not be alone. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let yourself feel what it means to be seen. Not judged, not measured, but noticed. Like a star noticed by a traveller, like a flower noticed by a child. Atlas may be alien, it may be nothing more than ice, but in wondering, in imagining, we've allowed it to become something more. A lantern, a witness, a watcher in the shadows. And perhaps, dreamer, that is the silent promise of the cosmos. That even in its vastness, even in its darkness, nothing is truly unseen. What if Atlas is not simply a visitor, not simply a messenger, not even just a watcher, but a bridge between us and the infinite? For to imagine it as alien is to stretch beyond ourselves, to dream larger than the borders of Earth, to touch mysteries far older than our species. We spend our lives surrounded by the ordinary. We wake, we work, we sleep, we repeat. And yet, every so often the universe drops something extraordinary into our skies. A comet that glows green, an orbit that bends probability, a whisper of intention where none should exist. Atlas is one such whisper. It is not here to conquer, nor to speak plainly. It is here to remind us that the cosmos is alive with possibilities, that what seems like silence may, in truth, be filled with meaning. The human dreamer. Let us pause and reflect on ourselves. What do we want truly as a species? We build cities, write books, explore oceans, reach for stars, but beneath it all lies a hunger for connection. We long to know that we are not alone, that our story is not an isolated flicker in an indifferent void. This is why the thought of ATLAS as alien grips us so tightly. It transforms a simple comet into a shared dream. It becomes a mirror, reflecting our own desire to belong to something greater. When you close your eyes tonight, feel that dream in your chest, the warmth of wanting to be part of a wider story, the comfort of believing that others, far away, perhaps long gone, once dreamed the same. The infinite is home. The infinite is not empty. It is a vast ocean, filled with mysteries beyond counting. Every star a possibility, every orbit a chance, every silence a stage for wonder. And Atlas, drifting quietly through that ocean, becomes not an intruder, but a fellow traveller, not a riddle to be solved, but a companion to be felt. Perhaps the infinite is not hostile. Perhaps it is home. A home not just for us, but for all dreamers, all civilizations, all beings who have ever gazed upward and asked the ancient question, who else is out there? Atlas is the answer, whispered in motion, written in dust. The infinite is alive, it says, and you are part of it. The bridge within. But here lies the most tender secret. The bridge Atlas offers is not only across space, it is also within us. To imagine a TLAS as alien is to awaken parts of ourselves we often let sleep. Our wonder, our humility, our courage to embrace the unknown. It draws us inward even as it points us outward. It teaches us that dreaming is not escape, but connection. That in letting go, in softening into mystery, we cross the bridge into the infinite, not with rockets, but with imagination. And imagination, dreamer, is the most powerful vessel of all. Dreaming together. Now breathe slowly. Picture yourself beneath the night sky. You're not alone there. Across the world, others lie under the same stars, listening to the same silence, wondering the same questions. And perhaps across the galaxy, others do too. They may look nothing like us. They may breathe strange airs, drink from alien rivers, dream in colours we cannot see. And yet, in this moment, they too gaze upward, noticing a faint green visitor crossing their sky. Atlas becomes the shared thread, weaving together beings who will never meet, yet who are united in wonder. That is the dream of the infinite, not isolation, but connection. A tapestry of questions stitched across the dark. Closing the journey. So tonight, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath becomes slow, let ATLAS drift with you into sleep. See it gliding silently, a lantern released into the night of space, carrying not fear, but possibility. Not noise, but silence. Not answers, but questions. The most beautiful questions of all. What if it is alien? What if it is a watcher? What if it is a messenger? What if it is simply a dream? Each of these what-ifs is not an end, but a beginning. Each is a doorway into deeper wonder. And as you drift now, crossing the threshold into sleep, remember this. You're already part of the infinite. Every breath you take is a rhythm of the cosmos. Every thought you dream is a thread woven into the vast tapestry. And Atlas, alien or not, is a reminder that the universe itself dreams with you. Rest in that thought. Rest in the infinite. Rest in the dream.